If you have not made a project file yet, please do so. Also make sure it's checked off over here before you continue. It should be if you just created it. Click on Part, and we're going to start a 2D sketch. We're going to make the top of this footstool. So right click and choose 2-point rectangle. You always want to start here in the center. It's called the origin. And before you click out here, I'm just moving my mouse, by the way. Do not click and drag. Just click once, move your mouse. You're going to click a second time, or you're going to just type in the dimensions you need. So I need 9 1/4, so 9.25. If I hit Tab, it'll jump to my other dimension. Oop, where'd it go? There it is. Hit Tab and type in 19.5. Okay, that's the overall length and width of this. Notice this is 9 1/4. Even though it's a 1x10, it's not actually 10 inches across. It's 9 1/4 inches across. We'll talk about what that means in class. But for now, let's go ahead and extrude that. And again, even though it's a 1 inch by 10 inch board, it's actually 0.75, so 3/4 of an inch. There we go. Now we're going to right click on this and choose New Sketch. And by the way, if you're trying to figure out how to move this around or zoom in and out, it's your mouse wheel. You can hold down the mouse wheel and move it, and that will move the whole object around the screen. You can roll the wheel of your mouse, and that zooms in and out. And you can also hold down Shift and your mouse wheel at the same time, and you can rotate that around to see other sides of it. Let's stay on this side. Right click, choose Project Geometry, and we're going to click on the gray box. Right click again and say OK. Now you have a yellow line that goes around it, and that means you're going to treat these edges here as object lines. So I'm going to go to my line tool. I'm going to grab the midpoint here, click, move my mouse, click again on this midpoint, right click, and say Line Tool to restart it. I'm also going to go from the top down to the bottom, right click, and say OK. And if I draw a box from the left side, from the right side to the left side, I can select both of those lines, right click, and turn those into construction lines. So now, whatever I draw here isn't going to, I don't know how to say it. When I go to make changes to this, it's going to ignore these lines. It's only for constructing the object. So we're going to make a circle. I did that by right-clicking and choosing Center Point Circle. And I'm going to click on this part of the line. We'll figure out distances in a second. The radius is 5/8. So that means that it's 1 1/4 is the diameter. We have another one. I'm just going to use my equal tool. Instead of typing in 1.25, I can take this one that is 1.25 and click on this one. And now that is equal to this. Okay, let's keep going. Right click and choose Line. I'm going to choose the top of this circle. Go over to the top of that circle, the bottom of this circle to the bottom of that circle, and say OK. Then I'm going to go to Dimension and say from this edge to the middle of that circle is going to be 8.5, 8.5. From this edge to the middle of this circle is going to be 11. And I don't want these parts inside, so I'm going to right click and say OK. Right click again, choose Trim, and we're going to get rid of the inside bits of this. So when we go to Extrude, which you can just on your keyboard press the letter E, click on this middle part and choose Cut. Now we'll get rid of that to where now we have something that's starting to look like a lid, we're going to add a 1/4 inch fillet all the way around this thing. So we're going to say fillet, choose the little down arrow, make this 0.25, and we're going to choose all of the top lines. And if I flip it over, so I'm going to click a corner and then bottom, I'm also going to get the lines on the bottom. And say OK, or click the green check. And just so this looks like wood, this is not a necessary step, but I like to do it. Over here where it says generic, scroll all the way down to the bottom. We're going to use cherry because they don't have pine on here, but that gives it a similar color. And we'll say save. We want to call this the top. Notice it already puts it in our footstool project.